Good Friday afternoon, evening, maybe even Saturday morning where you may be.
Hello.
Man, it's Friday again.
It's Friday.
Like we just did this last week, and here we
Yeah.
are yet again. It's okay, right?
Yeah. People cannot get rid of us.
Well, they could.
They can.
But we're glad that you chose not to. Thanks for joining us again today. By the way, my name is Darren. This over here is Victor, and we are the co-hosts of a podcast called DevOps Paradox. And on Fridays, we do this thing called DevOps Paradox Live. All that really means is there are 0 edits. Podcast, we clean it up a little bit. We might lay in some beeps, but here it all goes.
I can swear as much as I want, and there is nothing you can do.
Nothing that I can do other than kick you out of the room. That's the only thing that I could do.
I'm actually surprised that you didn't kind of set up that, the button that buzzes in the middle of swearing. No, not yet.
I don't have control over your audio. Your audio comes in just like my audio.
Yeah, but your audio can be louder than mine.
Oh, that's true. I could mute you, but you can unmute yourself. But where do we start? We start with our drinks. Now, I don't have to focus on today, so you have your beer. I have a grapefruit seltzer. So cheers, everybody. There we go. Okay, to get the day started. Where am I? There we are. Oh, right. It was this thing this week. Oh, I haven't told you something. I need to tell you afterwards. Don't let me forget. I'll send it to you in Slack. This week's episode was using GitOps in your DevOps workflow. Now, we're going to talk about this a little bit later towards the end of the show. I'll go ahead and say it, this has probably been one of our most popular episodes to date, based purely on downloads.
Okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, but I'll tell you more later. But anyway, if you haven't listened to this, go take a listen to it. If you haven't subscribed yet to the podcast, guess what? You can do that right here. There we go. DevOpsParadox.com. And if you click up here on the subscribe button, by the way, this is something I never walked people through before. If you click on the subscribe link, I should say, not a button, then here are all the different places that you can grab a subscription. We talked about it last week. Amazon Music's in place now. Amazon Music's pretty cool. But anyway, using GitOps in your DevOps workflow. We'll talk more about that towards the end of the show. Now, getting into the news for the week. First off, AKS with preview for Azure Stack. Now, if you don't know what Azure Stack is, that's the on-prem part of Azure. So what this means, you can now have AKS on-premise. Does that change anything?
I mean, it removes one of the excuses that people have to have cloud. And when I say cloud, I don't mean necessarily public cloud. I mean, infrastructure that has cloud-like properties.
Right.
Whether it's in your on-prem or not, so there are always those excuses. So I cannot do cloud because of this and that. And now, I mean, not now. Those solutions exist for a while, but this is one more, right? That says, that's not a real excuse. If you cannot go public, you can still do the same thing in private. It's awesome.
Yep.
Then what I believe that the path that Azure is taking and Google is slight towards on-prem is kind of slightly better, I think, than what Amazon is doing or AWS. That I feel that Amazon is very focused on just creating a bridge so that you can move to AWS, while Microsoft and Google are really trying to make those things work on-prem.
Yeah. And I think AWS will at some point in the future. But
the ultimate game for everybody, and I think it's a valid goal, not only kind of selfish monetary type of goal, is actually to give you cloud-like properties on-prem so that your transition to public cloud is smoother than it would normally be. I don't think that the goal is really for you to run this forever and ever, but for you to be able to move to public cloud easier.
I agree with that. Before we go any further, I forgot to say, if you've got any comments or want to say hello, go ahead and drop it in the chat. By the way, Vladislav, here, let's go. There you go, man. You've got your drinks. And he did call out on this, HCI, Anthos, and Outpost, right? Those are the big three. And I forgot that AWS is starting to build out Outpost, but I still think, Google and Azure still are a bit ahead.
I mean, even the name tells you, right? The approach. Outpost is supposed to be... So I think the direction that they're taking is a bit different. For Amazon, your on-prem is a satellite to Amazon, right?
Right.
While for Google and Azure, on-prem is on equal footing like their public services, right?
Right. So it's still going to be interesting how it plays out. All right. Next item, if I can get back to my list, it's about GitHub renaming the master branch. Now let me get back over here and punch this button here. So you actually brought this one in, and this was their, it's a little old, but they've been touching it recently. Renaming the default branch from master.
It's kind of going back in time, right? I remember when I was young and foolish, it was always a mainline, right?
Yeah, or trunk.
Or trunk, yes, trunk or mainline. But it's a good thing. Why not? Kind of like, why not remove the name master? And they seem to be doing it in a very safe way, so it's not a big bang. Nobody's masters will disappear. It's just that new repos will not have a master. It will have a main branch, which is the same as master. And you will be able to transition, if you choose to, your masters to main, right? But nothing will change. I mean, nothing will change for existing users. So it's a good thing, right?
Yep.
I kind of like those because I always felt that those things, let's rename master because it has a negative connotation. I'm up for it, but not if it's going to hurt me a lot. Kind of like, I'm not that much for it. But if it's almost no effort, this is a great initiative and well executed.
Yep. And I've already went into my account and set up any new repos I create. I've already forced it to main. So it's fine. And I'm leaving the existing repos I have. I'm not forcing a name change. If I touch them again and they need to be updated, I'll update them.
Now,
simple.
I'm going to be in a lot of pain because I have a bunch of, quite a lot of articles, tutorials when I tell people, okay, create a repo. Excellent. Do this, that, create a branch, and then use git checkout master to go back to the master branch. But there will be no master. I will have to work for it. It's okay.
No big deal. It's just work. Okay. And also, although this one's a little bit older, GitHub is killing passwords. And we got this off of Hackaday. But they're, as of, what was the date I was looking at it here? As of November 13th, you're going to have to use an OAuth token, a personal access token, or an SSH key. No longer a password.
Unlike the previous kind of announcement, this one is not something that makes me very happy, to be honest. I don't think that tokens are more secure than passwords, because passwords at least I can keep in my head, and tokens ends up being everywhere, really everywhere. I have a bunch of repos where I have tokens, and then in .git ignore, I have kind of don't push those tokens. Sometimes I forget. If you ask me now how many tokens I have on my laptop right now and where they are, I have no idea. Honestly, I have no idea. So I do believe kind of like, authentication through mobile, for example, where it asks you to confirm or to type the number that comes on the screen. I like that. I think that makes a lot of sense. Tokens are, in my head, just a way how to spread my equivalent of passwords everywhere. I see it as less secure, to be honest. Biometrics, kind of like scan my eyeball, ask me to put a fingerprint, ask me to confirm something on a mobile. I'm all for it. Tokens, no, I don't like it. I think it's worse.
Well, as of November 13th, you won't have a choice.
Yeah, I mean, I use tokens all the time, so I'm more. I don't use passwords with GitHub, to be honest. I just don't think it's a better option.
I agree with that. It's just, I mean, to me, it's always SSH.
And now I think that your audio went from being much lower than mine to being much higher.
Okay, so let me back it down one. How about now? And I'll go down one more just in case.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, I don't know. Vladislav will tell us.
Yep, Vladislav, you can let us know, because I can't monitor myself, and Victor doesn't know how loud I really am. So if we're even now, give us a thumbs up, Vladislav. So anyway, GitHub killing passwords. That was the thing. Now, as much as we love hating AWS, they keep doing better and better things. Copilot-04 came out. Dave. We still can't push an image, Dave. But ignoring that for a moment, one thing that I thought was interesting was, and I never caught this before, supporting auto scaling for the services.
It's one of the most painful things with this. Yes, it's just painfully painful, and this is so welcome, to be honest. Very welcome.
Yeah, this is. I mean, the other ones were interesting, like okay, but it was like, to me, this one should have been number one. Like this is a big one compared to the others. And this one, I'm glad they put it at the very end, supporting sticky sessions. Who uses sticky sessions today? Obviously, a lot of people.
Yeah, but that's one of those things that I don't like. I understand how this is useful for a lot of people, but then that also allows a lot of people to maintain status quo, because I think we should be pushing people into the right direction. And right direction is not to have sticky sessions. It's very useful, but it prevents people from moving forward.
Yeah, but ignoring that, I'm going to go back to here. This is huge. Huge. You know what? After I'm looking at it now, no, it's still, I thought it was in numerical order, but that breaks apart down here because that goes backwards. Oh well. And some minor bug fixes, but Dave, everybody else on Copilot, thumbs up. Good job. Now, a little thing that happened yesterday in the world of Google. They had a minor outage. Minor meaning every one of these products were affected. That was a big bust.
I mean, to begin with, I personally, and this is not a reference, so I cannot, my personal experience cannot count for much, but I experienced much more Google outages than Azure and AWS. But again, that might be, just random. But I did read there some statistics, don't ask me for links, I didn't save them, that yes, Google has higher percentage of outages than the other two. And that's kind of sad, because I really think that their solution technically is the one that I like the most. But hey, you need to be up and running, man.
It's a risk. Yep. Cloud Run and GKE and Cloud SQL. Right. If I had built my microservices architecture on Cloud Run being backed by Cloud SQL, I would have been toast yesterday, potentially, for over an hour. And that would have been bad. It's one thing to have a minute blip. It's another thing to have an hour-ish blip. Now, let me give them props compared to a lot of other status things. they are updating statuses, and they tell you when they're going to update by. It's like, hey, in 30 minutes, we're going to let you know something. And this one is another 30 minutes, right? This is a great strategy. And what's sort of weird is they had one happen both at the same time. I guess they started spreading it out. They did a little bit more in the middle and then finally resolved it. So.
Yeah. But I mean, it's a bit of misleading also. That's a randomly put number, right? Yeah. 8 o'clock. Because if you check, they didn't really update at 8 o'clock. They update and whenever they have an update.
When they had it done.
It's more like kind of worst case scenario. We're going to update, provide update in an hour.
Yep. It's like, if we don't know what's going on, we're going to tell you at least we still don't know what's going on. And that's good. I like that. Okay. Nothing huge around it, but even the big boys have problems. Which is comforting and terrifying all at the same time. Okay. Last bit of item for today. I saw this post from our friend Tracy Miranda, saying we need to stop using the term CI/CD.
Yes.
Now, Tracy is currently, what is her role right now?
She's the director of CD Foundation.
Of CD Foundation, right. I could not remember it. So she joined us back in episode, let me look it back up again here, 57, when she was still employed with my current employer. And we had her on and we went through some things. And this is before I believe anybody knew that she was heading to CD Foundation. But this was pretty funny. This was back from February, before the events that happened in the world. What does the D in CI/CD stand for? Deployment, delivery, and somebody said disappointment. That's pretty good. I like that one. But if it's, again, this heading here is key. It's confusing even to the industry professionals. CI/CD, well, which is it? Ignoring the funny one here, is it deployment or is it delivery? And this is where we're going to sort of start pivoting a little bit into what you've been doing with Argo and some of the statements that you've said in that video that I didn't pull in the link for. But it's to the point of CD is something that is not different than CI. Why don't you go through what the basics of how CI/CD really should be thought about?
So, I mean, in all cases, CI/CD, and I invented CDP because I have no better acronym for continuous deployment. So I call continuous delivery CD and continuous deployment CDP. It doesn't matter. Anyways, from tooling perspective, it's all the same. It's all bloody the same because it's all about orchestrating steps in a life cycle of an application, right? You build something, you test something, you do this, you do that, right? So from tooling perspective, I don't see the difference. I honestly don't. Now, of course, I see the difference between tools. Some tools are better, some tools are worse. But as what they do, if you tell me, yeah, I have a CI tool, yeah, in my head, that's a CD tool just as much as CI tool and vice versa, right? Of course, some are better, some are worse. So now the problem, I think, is that we have to get away from CI term because CI in practice became something that is misunderstood, right? Kind of nobody really knows where CI ends. Does it end when you build something, when you deploy something, when you test something? We don't know. We just know that there are some manual actions after we finish the automated process, right? So I definitely like more CD because simply it is well defined. It starts with a push to a Git repository, ends up having a production ready release, and continuous deployment is also well defined. It is about pushing something, starts with a push to the Git repository and ends up being deployed in production, right? There is no confusion about what it is. CI, yeah. I dare anybody to tell me a single sentence definition of what CI is.
Well,
kind of.
the one thing, yeah, and I don't think there is, but the thing we can agree is you can't get to either of the D's until you've had an I.
Yeah, so and this is now kind of what bothers me is that CI/CD, which is the most commonly used now acronym, somehow means that you have a CI process and then you have a CD process, as if those two are separate things. And in my head, they are not. CI, you can do CI because you can get only this far, and then there are quite a few things you need to do afterwards to finish the life cycle of an application. And if you're doing CD, then you are doing automatically CI. It's kind of CD in my head is extension of CI, right? If you do a few more steps, you're doing CD, right? It's just about the length, right? CI, no, here, you see,
There you
CI,
go. Yeah.
CD, CDP, right? It's just how far you get. And I really get annoyed when I hear kind of, oh, is this a CI tool or this CD tool? Or which tool are you using for CI and which tools you're using for CD? As if those are separate things. And I cannot imagine how they can be separate. And then every single product I'm looking at, not every single, but many products I'm looking at right now have that CD sticker. And now, if I can get to my favorite, today's favorite, because I change favorites every week, kind of Argo CD. Heck, it's not CD. It's not continuous delivery. It's not continuous deployment. It's not continuous anything. Argo is a way to deploy applications based on GitOps principles. This is the best definition inside Kubernetes. Yeah, exactly. It is not doing continuous delivery because there is no continuous delivery if I don't build binaries. There is no continuous delivery if I don't build images. There is no continuous delivery to production if I don't test it first, and so on and so forth. There is no avoid. I cannot just jump and say deploy nothing because I need to have something to deploy, and that something needs to be working, and so on and so forth. So I don't know, maybe it's late in the day, and then I'm kind of more annoyed than I should be, but it's not bloody CD. Don't call... and this is the part that I dislike. I hate when people call things in a way that is inappropriate. I think it's the same thing, like kind of, oh, you're not doing Scrum, you're not Agile. Bug off. Go away, kind of. Or are you a DevOps engineer? There is no such thing as a DevOps engineer. The same thing, kind of, hey, I give you a tool to deploy something, therefore it's CD. It's not. Doesn't matter how often you say it, it's not. Or I'm wrong. That's the alternative explanation as well.
Well, we've already said before that it's not possible for you to be wrong, so we'll throw that out.
No, it's not. It's not. But I like to pretend that I'm nice and kind of give the option that doesn't really exist. And just a quick disclaimer. Whatever I said about Argo CD, I think it's awesome. So it's absolutely fantastic, awesome. I love the tool. It's one of my favorites. So I'm just pissed about its name.
It's just a name. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's misleading. It's misleading, and I don't like people being misled.
So let's see if we can solve this issue. Let's see if we can help Tracy out. So the first thing is, let me go ahead and share the screen again. The first thing is, let's get rid of the slash and just turn it into CI/CD as a 4-letter acronym. That means absolutely nothing.
I think that it could be CI or CD. I want or, right?
Okay.
You're either doing CI,
because
you can get this far, or you're doing CD, and if you're doing CD, then CI just implied. It's a subset.
Okay. But see, okay, so you've said it two different ways. So let me spin it back around. So initially you had said that the D is an extension of I. But what you just said was that I is a subset of D, which I believe the latter is more correct.
I mean, when you extend something, then whatever you extend it becomes a subset, right?
In theory, yes.
In practice.
In theory. In theory.
Yeah.
By definition, it's better to go the other way. It's not worth fighting over. It doesn't matter. But it's eliminating the phrase. I have to agree with Tracy. Eliminating the CI/CD as an industry term. What is a better term, though?
We would need to come. Yeah, so it would need to be. It cannot be use CD only or use CI only because they already have certain connotations, certain understanding. Then we would need to do the same thing like what we did with EBSs, and now it's microservices, right?
Right.
So it would need to be a completely new term. The same thing as what happened with progressive delivery, right?
It's true.
Progressive delivery became an umbrella for different practices like blue, green, canary, rolling updates. It all became progressive delivery. So
what is
continuous? Here it goes. Okay. I didn't think about continuous life cycle management.
Continuous life cycle management. Okay,
continuous automated life cycle.
Calm. There it is. CALM. Continuous automated life cycle management. Trademark. Okay.
Hey, buy check the .com or IO.
That one's already really gone, and it has nothing to do with software delivery. It's got to be something like that. I mean, we're joking, but not really. My only problem with that four-letter is it has ALM in it, and ALM in the software industry means something completely different.
I would say, remove all the humans.
That's what we're trying to do.
Rach.
Sounds Klingon. So I don't know, and there's no way we can actually solve this in 5 minutes. Vladislav's got a good one here. Vinyl sounds better. Yeah, that's CDs, vinyl. Get it? CD, vinyl. Did you? Okay, good. Just making sure.
I did. I'm old enough.
CI vinyl. Yeah. So what do you? I mean, there is no easy answer. You're liking Argo. Argo is fun right now. Notice I'm saying Argo and not Argo CD. I'm trying to be polite.
But that's also misleading because Argo project actually has like 4, 5, 6 projects, right? And Argo CD is one of them. So it could be Argo workflows. It could be Argo rollouts. It's complicated.
It's complicated, just like any good open source project.
But, the worst thing is that I complain about those things, and then I'm using those misleading terms as well. I have books called DevOps Toolkit, and I'm saying that there is no such thing as DevOps tools, right? My new title is Principal DevOps Architect, and I'm claiming that there is no such thing. When you
want to talk to us about this, go join up in the Slack workspace. Tell us how wrong we are, or take a look at our Twitter feed. I'm sort of trying to pull you away from the dark side right now. Let you drink more beer. I know it's the terms that we use in our industry can become very annoying. I'm not going to say misleading. I don't believe they're misleading. I honestly do not believe they're misleading. I just believe they're not well defined. And they have been, and the phrasing has, the definitions of those terms have mutated over time to put us where we're at today.
But going back to Tracy and kind of, hey guys, boys, girls, come to CDCon. And I just got email yesterday that it was $25 going to charities. Now they removed, you can opt out from charities because you cannot afford it. So now it's free if you choose to. And it's the first conference, and then it's always difficult to set up the first one. So give them a bit of help.
Yep, I'm trying to pull it up here real quick. Why is it not?
If you go to cd.foundation, it's foundation. It's on the front page.
No, not really. Oh, there it is. Sorry, here, let me pull it up. So it's 7th and 8th. Lots of people going to be there. There's Tracy right up here.
Yeah.
I saw Victor, but he was buried underneath. Marky's going to be there.
I mean, see all speakers.
Yeah, he's below way below the fold.
I'm a surprise. I'm unexpected surprise.
There was actually, and it's very interesting just taking a look at the companies being represented here. It's a very interesting spread of big companies, whether it's like a Capital One or Salesforce or Google. I didn't see AWS here though. That's interesting. So I still don't see you. I saw you the other day, but now I've lost you. Oh well. Did they boot you out? You're muted.
Yeah, maybe they kicked me out, bastards.
Wait.
Oh, there I am. There I am. Look at that pretty face. How pretty he is.
Did they do this? Fall in love. Here's the reason why I didn't find you is because it was alphabetical. I was trying to think it was something else. But anyway. Oh well. That's actually all the news that we have for today. It was a light wait. Oh wait, here we go. Here, let's go through. Neil's got a couple of things here. Neil, thanks for joining us today. Looking forward to the Argo CD updates to the Udemy class. They are out, right? You published this last night?
No, I published. There is a section about both the book and Udemy. They're always published same day, same time. I published the introduction, kind of what is GitOps, blah blah blah, and the manuscript for Argo CD is finished. The recordings are finished, but I need to assemble the video. And since this is not my office hours work, it needs to wait the weekend. So this weekend I'm gonna finish and publish.
Cool. And then
life is hard.
Yep. And the question here is, do we have any opinions on Apache Airflow? Have you even looked at it before?
I looked at it a long time ago, but I don't want to judge it. I'm not good at it. I don't know. Hey, okay, here's Neil. Figure it out and then help us do what Vadim did. Help us write a section about Apache Airflow in the catalog. Hey, why not? I'm going to help you write or record or whatever, but start it. I'm going to edit it. Just ping us and we're going to add it to the repo.
Yeah.
How about that?
No big deal. I'm looking at it. I'm not sharing this screen over here. So I pulled up Airflow here. I'd actually had a friend of mine ask me about this probably about a year ago. It's a workflow process. That's a workflow management system, right? Is that the right way to say it, I guess?
Yeah.
So my only problem with it is this. But that's okay. It's not horrible.
Hey, but kind of why not? Why not Python?
It's fine.
I mean,
fine.
Exactly.
It's not my preference. That's what I'm saying. It's just not my preference.
Yeah, it could be Perl. It could be JavaScript.
Yeah. Oh, it could be JavaScript. Ugh. Thankful it's not
exactly.
JavaScript.
Exactly. No, I'm saying it could be as if it could be worse.
Yes, it could be much worse. And then all the integrations they have. So I might look back into this again, put this on my list of, will I ever see the light of day again? I'll tell you what, I'm behind about a week due to some day job things on editing podcast, and I gotta get back in the rhythm. Let's just put it that way. That's all I'll be doing this weekend. But we got some great episodes coming up. Really, really good episodes. I think everybody's going to like them. And I think I haven't told you this, we still need to record one more, just me and you. We'll talk about that later.
Okay.
Because I would forget about it if I didn't say it right then. So Neil, unfortunately, no real opinions. Victor can add you to the repo. Then you can write the section. Why not?
Yeah.
It'd be fun, right? It's always fun. What else?
But
Anybody
if,
have any
not
other questions?
If you do it, it's not that much fun if you do it every day after midnight and weekends. But other than that,
yeah. I mean, it's if you haven't figured it out, Victor does he actually does all the hard work. I will come in and do some editing, at least on the text side, and clean up grammar and stuff, because English is what, your 19th language? Is that right? You speak like 18 other languages?
not that much. But yeah, English is not my. And I never had really, a funny story that I wasn't really that great at school. And 3 years, so we had 4 years secondary school, we call it, right? And 3 of those 4 years I had to repeat English.
That's okay.
Kind of, yeah. So I was flanking English every single year.
So I come at it from a grammar and spelling and just sentence structure stuff. So, but then I'm spending most of my time editing podcast, which I hope everybody reads the transcripts. If you're not reading the transcripts, I'll still keep doing them for other reasons, but those things are a pain in the butt.
Especially when you have somebody with accent like mine.
Let's put it this way.
And some guess. It could be worse than me. I know that. It could be worse than me.
And it has been, and that's okay. And it's fine. It's been great content. But I always know it, but I sort of gotten used to it. I think we're on somewhere in the 35 to 40th episode that we're doing transcriptions for now. And this one that I'm editing with Joe from Pulumi, which he is a native English US American speaker. It's got it almost word for word. Other than just cleaning up, it's like, this is great, but I still have to, clean some stuff up. But I get to your section and it's like, okay, deep breath, here we go. Because, and I notice it here too, and I do the same thing, is you start saying something, you pause because you're regrouping while you're saying just those couple of words, and then you start saying the real thing. I do the same thing. So it's those kinds of things that it's like, okay, where do I really start? Okay, let's get back. Should we be using Argo CD to deploy in-house apps and third-party apps? Let me answer that one first. Let me answer it first.
Okay.
Because again, I haven't gone hands-on for Argo. My opinion on this is, why not? Is there any reason why you would not use Argo CD for both in-house and third-party apps? I can't think of a reason why not, based on what I have seen and read.
So what I would say is that, the ideal flow and the ideal, which I'm fully aware that nobody will ever get to, but, nirvana state, is that you create a cluster, you get kubectl access to that cluster to install Argo CD preferably through a pipeline, not yourself, right? And then at that very moment, after you install Argo CD, you remove access to kube control plane completely. From there on, nobody can install or update anything in your cluster. And when I say nobody, just let me clarify, that applies to both humans and machines. I think and that's the biggest benefit, I think, of tools like Argo CD. Argo CD is not the only one. I wouldn't allow my CI/CD pipelines to deploy anything except Argo CD. Because then it's a chicken and egg problem. Like you cannot have Argo CD manage itself because it needs to exist first.
Right.
But and this is, people talk about GitOps and stuff like that, and I think it's amazing. That's a great advantage of Argo CD. But in my head, the biggest advantage is that I can lock production completely without lowering productivity of people. Because that's, to me, that's a holy grail. In kind of in my career, I was always in one extreme or the other. Either I need to wait for a week until the privileged person that is the only person in a company can deploy my release, right? That's option number one, which is horrible because that's the only person who has access to production. And I understand there is a good reason not to give everybody to access to production. Or I was in the other extreme that everybody can do whatever they want in production, and then nobody knows what's happening in production, right? And in my head, this is kind of like the marriage of best of the two, right? It's pooling data, so everything is controlled through Git. Nobody needs access to production anymore, but also nobody needs to wait eternity and open 17 Jira tickets and sign with blood some documents for the release to get to production because that single person or single department is overwhelmed with the number of deployments, and they're the only ones who can access it, right?
Yeah.
So deny access to everybody and everything and still be productive. That's the real thing about Argo CD. Well, and nobody speaks about that, kind of like it's always kind of how it is GitOps, and it is GitOps, but that's not the main advantage.
This is what Terraform Cloud gives you, or Atlantis, right? It's this, everything comes in via code, and then it's that thing. And effectively, Argo CD is an operator.
Yeah,
right?
But yes, it is. It is effectively an operator, right? Or it's a listener of. But anyways, but there is that huge difference, and because of the nature of the task, Terraform is a push model, meaning that it needs to have access to your account. It needs to become an admin to be able to do stuff. And that's normal. That's not a judgment on Terraform. That's simply because the nature of what it does is like that.
Right.
But Argo CD is different. Argo CD has no access to your clusters. It's simply sitting in your cluster, and there is no external communication going to it. You don't open ports. You don't do any of those things. It's pulling information.
It's reaching out. Yeah. It's listening for. Now, is it hook-based or is it... Oh, please don't tell me it's polling.
Yeah, it's polling.
Oh, jeez.
Why?
Polling a Git repo? Come on.
There is an obvious downside to that, and that downside is that you're not pulling every 2 seconds, so you might need to wait for a couple of minutes until synchronization starts, because it is not pulling all the time; it is pulling periodically. So that's a downside, right? Now, if that is too, let me clarify. That's if you enable.
Go ahead, finish your thought.
If you enable automatic synchronization, now nothing prevents you from saying, hey, I don't want automatic synchronization, synchronize now. And then it's basically a push model in a way. I mean, it will pull still, but it is not pulling constantly, right? I mean, if you have a CD pipeline, it is pulling code. It's just that the trigger to pull is push, right?
That's what I think about it.
So if you have a CD pipeline, the CI pipeline, right? It is pulling code. It needs to check out the code. Argo CD needs to do that as well. The difference is that CD pipeline is triggered from outside, and Argo CD needs to pull periodically all the time, like what we had in Jenkins a long time ago, and nobody's using anymore with polling, right? Now you can disable that. Many people do. I just think that the disadvantage of pulling periodically is smaller than disadvantage of having to give access to your cluster, even Git to Git.
Absolutely.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes. In that context, I'm in complete agreement. It's just a bad smell. But according to Neither, you can do a webhook from GitHub to Argo to notify of a change.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. You can do that, and then it doesn't have to be to pull periodically. But I think that this is bigger evil. The webhook is worse than the downsides of periodically polling data.
I think the phrase that you're using there is critical. Periodically polling.
Yeah, periodically.
Not every 5 seconds. That would be
every few minutes or something like that. Right?
Yeah. So like a normal, let's say I've got, well, in fact, let's use our website for an example. I've got a cron job set up because we're using Hugo and we're using Netlify. And I don't have, there's no scheduling model inside of Netlify. Well, I've got a little Raspberry Pi and I've got a cron job that's set up to run every Wednesday morning at 5:55 a.m. Eastern time, which then goes out, does the poll because I've got everything tuned, and then that publishes the new post, right? Okay, once a week, that's probably too small. But there may be some apps that you only want to happen that way. You only want these certain things to happen for certain apps on the weekend because that's the maintenance window. That's a huge upside for doing a polling methodology. You just can't have polling go insanely crazy. That's where all polling goes bad.
Yeah, and it's always about, pros and cons. And to be honest, if you're talking about, let's say, staging environment or integration environment, actually, I prefer webhooks, right?
Yes.
Or a CLI command that says synchronize now.
Yeah.
Right. But
All
production, to me, that's a holy grail.
Yes.
Having it 100% completely locked down, and now comes the important part, without affecting the productivity of people, right? It's easy to lock it down and nobody can do anything.
Right.
But still being productive. So yes, I'm willing to wait for a couple of minutes until synchronization starts.
Yeah. And maybe that's once every 15 minutes or every half hour. Right? And that's completely okay.
Yeah.
That's more than okay. So since we've been talking about Argo here for a few minutes, look at that beautiful face and Victor.
Isn't he pretty? Look at him. That's.
I have to admit, the Argo logo is one of my favorite right now. It's just a cool looking logo. I was talking about the character, not you, by the way.
Okay. Okay, I'm confused now.
In case you didn't catch that. If you haven't watched this video yet, I will put a link to this down in the description for today. I would say listen to it at double speed, but again, English isn't Victor's first language. Speed and a half, maybe. Double X is a little hard to follow. Even after having worked with him for a couple of years now, it's still hard to follow.
I'm getting better. I'm getting better than I was 2 years ago, right?
Yeah, it's because you're talking with somebody that lives in the deep south of the U.S. that talks really slow, so you don't have a choice. This is a great, if you haven't gone through Argo at all, go through Victor's video, even if it takes you the full 20 minutes, just so you can get a basic understanding, and then go back and listen to everything that we were just complaining about, me primarily complaining about polling, and understand the differences, and understand, okay, where could this fit in? And again, I'm going to go back to Neil's question from earlier of should we be using this for in-house and third party? I still think it's both. I don't see a reason why not, right? There's
for everything.
I can't see a reason why you would not do that.
Absolutely.
Because it goes back to your thing. You want that production cluster. We'll ignore the lower environments for a moment. That production cluster needs to be as isolated as possible. And it's reaching out and getting information. Now, if you want to go the other direction and do hooks, or you're going to do a post in to fire off Argo, that's your choice, right? But regardless of which way you're doing it, that's a very narrow pipe, very narrow. That's the only thing we'd ever do. Boy, we went down the rabbit hole there. So next week, I was just looking at your schedule again because I forgot about it. So you're doing CDCon on October 7th. You're also doing something that we were talking about, and I didn't actually capture it all. So you said it's the Euro Cloud Engineering Summit. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, Europe Cloud Summit.
Europe Cloud Summit. Let me see if I can find that.
Yeah.
But regardless, for CD Foundation, go sign up for that. European Cloud Summit. Let's see if it's this one. I'll share it here in just a second. Unless I'm doing it live.
Actually, there is one more thing now, commercial for others. I will be on October 1st with Brett Fisher again.
Oh, you're going to be on with Brett.
Yeah.
Interesting. All featured speaker. Let's see if you're a featured speaker at Cloud Summit EU.
I'm not. Bastards. Bastards.
Is this not you? It's not. Is this the wrong one?
No.
Because there were
Probably
two.
it's wrong.
Okay, here, hang on a second. So there's Europe Cloud Summit.
Europe Cloud Summit.
Is this it?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's the one.
Okay. Speakers, let's see. Man, there are, so this is one thing I can tell a difference between Europe and the US is I see a lot of company names in the European side that I have no clue who they are.
Because it's kind of all the important things are happening in.
I knew you were
okay.
gonna say
So
that. And there you are.
no.
Pretty face.
All the important things either start in US or move to US. So if you're a European company and you become a successful startup, you need to go to Silicon Valley to get funding. That's how it works. And you become a US company.
Yep.
Which is, I think it's very positive. There are many negative things, especially I lived kind of half a year in Silicon Valley. And there are many things that I don't like, but there is no other place in the world that created that investment culture that fosters innovation as there. I'm not saying that there are no innovative companies somewhere else and all those things, but it is truly a unique part of the world.
Yep.
For good or bad, there are many things I don't like. So I'm not kind of fanboy of Silicon Valley, but hey, credit where credit is due. There is simply that culture doesn't exist anywhere else.
Yep. And one other one that I want to call out real quick is Sneak's got one coming up. I think their CFP is actually closed now, but I'm not totally sure. But regardless, starting the list already. So
yeah,
there's
Patrick.
Hey Patrick.
And Sneak is awesome, really. I promise that we promise that we're gonna do security thing in the catalog, and that will come sooner or later. I just don't know when. But what I can promise right now is that the first thing done in security will be Sneak.
Yeah, because
whenever that happens, if that happens.
Yeah.
So I don't guarantee anymore that security is coming anytime soon. But when it comes, it will be Sneak first because it's awesome.
Because it's awesome, number one. Number two, it's baked into Edge, Docker Edge, right? So there's no reason to at least give it at least 10 minutes worth of look to see how it works. But again, we're still talking containers. And sadly, there are many companies that still are not containerized and probably will never be.
I mean, so depends how you define that, really. If you say that there are many, I don't think that there are many companies today that don't use containers at all. Almost every company today has containers in some form or way. I prefer to speak about the amount of workloads being in containers, right? Almost every company has, at least in labs, something happening with containers. Everybody is at least experimenting with it, right? Has something. Now, the real problem, I think that we passed that point of, hey, will you ever use containers for anything? Something is used with containers. Now, the real question is, when are we going to move significant percentage of workload to containers? I think that's the next barrier. Because most companies use maybe 10% is in containers on average, or 5 or 2.
Maybe.
Yeah. Everybody has it, but not significant percentage of workload is there.
It looks like we were actually helpful.
Hey, Neil! Yeah, Rancher is awesome. Rancher is just... If I wouldn't be so lucky to be able to use cloud most of the time, I would be using Rancher.
Should be Rancher. Yeah, absolutely. They, from an on-prem, I still haven't looked up that other one. I need to look them up again.
So,
but
the thing about there are two important things about that I like about Rancher. First, because their Kubernetes distribution for self-managed Kubernetes is awesome. But more importantly, is that they're a company who can that proves that they can transition quickly to what makes more sense. Because on-prem is kind of a hard sell today, especially having Red Hat, and then being able to switch to Edge and become basically the de facto standard for Edge, and redefine of how we see Kubernetes. Because until yesterday, I could not imagine really a good use case for Kubernetes on Edge. I mean, beyond, I'm playing with my Raspberry Pis because I can, but Kubernetes on Edge in real-world scenarios, that was unimaginable for me until recently. And Rancher proved that being a very, very viable option. They're basically de facto standard for Edge.
Yep.
I mean, within Kubernetes area.
If you're stuck with on-prem and you got to find a distribution, at least start with Rancher. There are some others out there, but start with Rancher. You got at least you got to bake it off. And just because we're saying Rancher, and Neil, we're thankful that helped you out, but you got to know, because what we say today may not be true next week. It's almost like JavaScript frameworks.
Because there is almost kind of like Rancher is basically almost the only viable free on self-managed Kubernetes that I can imagine. And you can go enterprise later and give money, and that's okay. I think that everybody should pay when their use case becomes sufficiently big to warrant that. But within free options, self-managed, it's Rancher, right? There is nothing else.
Pretty much.
And here's a message to all the listeners: don't do kubeadm, please.
Wait, let's state that one more time.
To all those thinking about running Kubernetes by themselves, whatever you do, do not, and I repeat, do not do kubeadm. It's a waste of time. It's a complete waste of time. And the fact that Kelsey Hightower wrote a book how to do it does not mean that you should be doing it.
That's Victor.
I think that
on Twitter.
Kelsey is amazing. So I think that he's a brilliant person. So it's not kind of trashing Kelsey. But, the same thing like, hey, how many of us are building kernel?
Prior to Rancher existing, kubeadm was the answer, right?
Yeah. But Rancher had Rancher, I think, was very problematic at the beginning. Like many solutions were very problematic because initially it was based on Docker Swarm. It was some strange thing. But since Rancher 2.0, which, what was it, like 3 years ago, I think, or something like that, 2-3 years ago, found its way, I think. And that's the period where we were all confused, to be honest.
But because we were hoping Swarm would win, right?
We were hoping that somebody will win.
Yeah.
Me and you both were kind of like working with Swarm and also betting on Mesos and watching whether there will be anything out of Kubernetes. It was horrible. So many years lost. But it's a good thing.
But there's no way I would have taken Kubernetes at that point in time. Maybe, but
no. So to be honest, when we started working on product, which I'm not going to mention, that was based on Mesos, there was no alternative really.
No, there wasn't.
Viable, kind of like when you think about it. Hey, this exists, this works. We know that there are companies that use it successfully. Yesterday appeared Swarm, which is kind of like a new kid on a block. We don't know what it's doing, and I'm talking about very early days, and I'm talking about not Swarm that people know today, but Swarm that was baked in
weird.
Docker,
Yeah.
right?
weird.
And then Kubernetes appeared. There were talks about, Google just open source something. We don't know what it is. So Mesos was a good option at that time, and it proved to be a disaster. But hey, that's how industry works.
Yep. And we're at the top of the hour. Man.
Hey.
That went by a lot faster than I thought it was going to.
See?
If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, go right underneath Victor, click on subscribe, like it's right over there. Click on subscribe, ring that bell.
That's offensive,
Okay, sorry. Over there, somewhere over there, click the subscribe button, ring the bell. If you're not subscribed to the podcast, new episodes drop every Wednesday at 6 a.m. Eastern. And let me see if I had any other things that we needed to talk about as we close out. I don't believe so. We got all where you're going to be. I think that's it. It's time for me to do some recording after we're done here.
Oh.
Yeah, it's not going to be cool stuff, though. Well, actually, it's very cool, just not cool that I can publish publicly. Vladislav, you have a good weekend, too. To everybody else, have a great weekend. Oh, next week. Next week's show is probably going to be early morning Eastern. So for the people in Europe, it may be around lunchtime to 2 p.m. I don't know exactly when yet. I've got a client meeting next week that's going to run in this normal-ish time frame. So be watching out on Thursday so you can set your reminders. All right, let's call that good. We will talk to everybody again next week. Have a great weekend. We'll see you later.